Your girl is a karaoke escort. She loves getting glazed, especially when it rains. That's exactly why your trashy moped never has a mudguard. At 18, you've been shuttling escorts to dive bars for over a year now. But, because you tried to get down with Lexi, the boss, Big T, transferred you. You figured, as long as you keep your hands off the girls, you'd be fine. But, truthfully, you broke the rules the second you had to pack up and leave that escort trap house. Big T moved you to a new spot, about 2 miles down the road from the girls. He handed you over to Tyler, your ride or die, who also happens to be Big T's little brother. The gig sounded dead simple. Watch the arcade slots, load credits, hand cash out players, keep a tab, loan out cash, and send them to the lobby to collect if you have to. Your base pay was the same as the chauffeur gig, but now you were getting a cut of the total house revenue. Sounded like a sweet upgrade, right? Tyler put you in charge of the cash. For the first time in your life, you were holding a couple grand a day. A player buys in, you load the points, take the cash, they win, you tally the points, count out the bills. It wasn't your money, though, so it felt pretty light in your hands. It was house money, but holding all those stacks made you feel like you actually had power. You started walking around with a lot more swagger. Day 1 on the job, you and Tyler grab breakfast at 9 a.m. You get back to the shop just as the first Dagon walks in. Daytime traffic was dead. The real crowd didn't show up until after 9 p.m. Buy-ins, cash outs, loans, and paybacks, money just constantly flowing through your fingers. Before you knew it, a month had passed. Today, Big T came by to run the numbers and pay you boys out. Everything was smooth, good money, easier work than driving girls, and way more cash passing through your hands. At this point, you genuinely felt like you were moving up in the world, and that's exactly when it's easiest to slip. But your mistake wasn't being sprung on a girl, it was starting to believe that you were the one controlling the game. Ever since you left that escort trap house, you kept in touch with Lexi. You just still facetimed, still texted every day, and still kept that genius habit of playing single-player mode on cam. 2 a.m., after the shop cleared out, you and Tyler hopped on the bike and hit a dive bar. Then you crept back to that dorm, hiding behind a tree 100 yards away, waiting for Lexi and her friend to sneak out. Your mistake wasn't just creeping around with Lexi, it was eating the forbidden fruit, and doing it on speakerphone, basically letting a third and fourth party in on the secret. After picking up the girls, you brought them to the bar where Tyler was waiting. An hour of drinking later, all 4 of you dragged yourselves into a cheap no-tell motel. You and Tyler, each popping a gas station rhino pill to boost your immune system. Lexi and the other chick dropped half a party mint each, turned on the strobe lights, and put their AirPods in. Then, every couple did the deed. Same stuff, different day. Out of a month, you went out like 20 times, to the point where your and Tyler's combined 2 grand salary still wasn't enough. Not because your pay was trash, but because you started spending like a guy who didn't know when to stop. Some nights, you'd close up early because of a storm. Looking at the rain made you miss Lexi, but she was still on the clock. So, you marched right into the club, booked a VIP room like a regular John, and requested Lexi by name. She walked in, sat right next to you, still smiling, still sweet, making you think you were special. But the clock was ticking. Her time cost you the exact same hourly rate as any other guy. If you wanted to see her during her shift, you had to pay the exact same system that owned her. You didn't even feel pathetic yet. You actually thought you were being smart. You got to see her, and you didn't have to wait outside in the rain like a stray dog. But looking back, that's when the true colors started showing. Today, just like any other day, Lexi texted you after her shift, saying, "Pick me up in 10. But right now my pockets are completely empty. You get it, dry as Lexi's taco. And payday wasn't for another 10 days. But you couldn't bring yourself to say no, because you were absolutely wet. Right then, your brain shifted gears and just clicked. But it was a grimy, twisted thought. You figured you'd just get an advance from the shop's register and pay it back when you got your cut at the end of the month. Sounds like an advance, right? But you knew damn well it wasn't an advance, it was theft. You were just slapping a different label on it to help yourself sleep at night. From that point on, you weren't just spending money anymore, you were burning your only way out. You showed up, picked up Lexi, the routine was identical, hit the bar, hit the motel, smash, pig out, and crash until morning. You weren't just addicted to Lexi anymore, you were addicted to the lifestyle that came with her. Addicted to the rush of always having something to look forward to when the night ended, a place to run to and blow off steam after your shift. Every time you blew that cash, you felt like you were living your youth to the fullest until the hangover hit. In just the last 10 days of the month, you managed to blow $1,200 of the shop's money. And if they took that $1,200 out of your paycheck, you'd be left with exactly 0 cents. Meaning next month, you'd have no cash to keep playing ATM to Lexi. For the first time in your life, you started getting scared of money, not because you were broke, but because you knew your hands were deep in a cookie jar that wasn't yours, and that $1,200, that was just the price of admission. Then payday arrived. 10 minutes is 7 a.m. Big T rolled into the shop to check the machines, run the revenue, and cut you boys your checks. The month's gross was around 25 grand, after subtracting the players' tabs. The cash in the safe should have been $12,000, but after counting it out, Big T only tallied up $10,800. Short exactly $1,200, the exact amount you had secretly blown. Big T looked at both of you, asking real quietly, "Where's the rest?" In that split second, your brain went into overdrive. You blurted out, "Oh, there's a player's tab from last night I forgot to write down." Big T just stared at you for a few seconds, dead silent, and his silence was exactly what terrified you. You knew he was filing that away. The scariest part isn't getting caught red-handed, it's being let off the hook so you have enough rope to hang yourself. Because only you knew there was no phantom player with a tab. After paying you both, Big T left, you finally let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. But that lie only bought you a band-aid. It didn't make the missing money magically reappear. It just bought you time to dig the hole deeper. And you really couldn't stop yourself. From then on, your late-night party streaks with Lexi just got heavier. Popping party mints wasn't cutting it for you anymore. You started buying vitamin K, and vitamin K costs 10 times as much. Every time you stepped out at night, you were torching at least $150. The deficit just kept swelling. You knew it. You knew you were in debt. You knew you were sliding down a razor blade. If you had hit the brakes right then, you might have survived. But you didn't stop, because sometimes, when people fall, it's not because they don't know right from wrong, it's because they're hooked on the ride. The high feels better than the fear of the crash. And what was waiting for you down the row wasn't about romance anymore. It was turning into a matter of survival. A month later, Big T came back to run the numbers. This time, the machines logged over 35 grand in deposits. But, after counting, the cash on hand was only $12,000. The remaining $23,000 was written down in the ledger as player debt. Big T ordered both of you to go out and collect every single cent of that debt before anyone else got a new line of credit. Only you knew that out of that $23,000 in debt, $8,000 of it was a ghost. It was never coming back, because that was exactly the amount you had embezzled from the shop. All in just a short months of playing house with Lexi. That night, for the first time, you weren't in the mood to go drinking. You laid flat on your back, arm draped over your forehead, staring at the ceiling for a long time. You weren't thinking about how to collect those debts tomorrow, or if you even could. You had exactly one thought: how the hell am I gonna score $8,000 to fill this grave I just dug for myself? And when you're trapped in a corner, Anything that glitters looks like an exit sign. You rolled over and looked at the arcade slot machine. An absolutely wildly unhinged idea sparked in your head. If this machine swallows players' cash every single day, maybe I can gut it and get the money back out. Sounds dumb as hell, right? But when you're at the end of your rope, the dumbest idea always sounds like the master plan. The next morning, Tyler got word someone unalived in his family. He took 3 days of bereavement leave. You weren't sad for him. You barely even comforted him. Deep down, you were actually thrilled. Tyler bounced, leaving you with the keys to the kingdom. There was just one thing you didn't consider. Why, right at the exact moment you were drowning in stolen cash, did Tyler have to leave? And right when you were the most desperate, why were you suddenly left totally alone with the machine? You thought God was opening a door for you, but sometimes doors open at the perfect time, not to save you, but to let you walk right into your own game over screen. That night, at 2 a.m., after the last Degan left, you locked the doors, killed the lights, and unplugged the cameras. For the first time, it was just you and the machine. And for the first time, there was nobody left to stop you. After 2 months of running these machines, you knew they were rigged to pay out about 30%, keeping 70% for the house. Your logic was terrifyingly simple. If a player just got completely washed out at one seat, the machine had to spit some of it back out eventually. If I just jump in at the right time, play the right seat, and cash out immediately, I can claw back what I owe. Made perfect sense, at least to a guy who was out of options. You loaded your own cash into the machine, sat right where the last guy had lost his shirt, and started mashing the button. In just 10 minutes, you were up $800. Then, the machine started clawing it back. You pulled the plug when your profit hit $600. Staring at that cash, your heart was pounding out of your chest. You didn't think you got lucky. You thought you had hacked the matrix. You won exactly one hand, and suddenly you thought you were the boss of the casino. For the first time, you felt smarter than the system. The next night, you ran the exact same play, waited for the shop to empty, locked up, killed the lights, and loaded cash into a seat that had just cleaned someone out. This time, you held onto another $800, bringing your total haul to $1,400. Your ego skyrocketed. You convinced yourself you weren't a gambler, you were an opportunist exploiting a glitch. Then you hopped to another empty seat that had eaten cash, tested the waters, and walked away with another $400. At this point, you were dead certain you had found your golden ticket. Right then, Lexi texted. She just got off shift and wanted to hang out since you hadn't seen each other in days. Normally, you'd have peeled out of there in a heartbeat, but this time, you just glanced at your phone and shoved it aside. You wanted to make just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. And that little bit more is exactly what makes guys unalive themselves. You hopped to a new seat, but this time, the machine started vacuuming. You lost hand after hand. The more you lost, the higher you bet, the higher you bet. The faster you lost, the more you bled, the more you deposited, the more you deposited, the more desperate you got to win it back. You were up $1,800. 15 minutes later, you were down $2,000. You froze. One single thought flashed through your brain. If I had just stopped while I was ahead, I'd be golden right now. But that moment of clarity lasted about 3 seconds. Right after that, your Degan brain did some new math. All right, I just lost $3,800 total, $2,000 of my own cash, plus the $1,800 in winnings. Let's just load a little more, win back the $2,000 principal, and walk away. From that exact second, you weren't playing to win anymore. You were playing to erase the reality that you had just lost. You loaded more in, and instantly tanked another $2,000. Grand total, you torched an extra $4,000 in a single, solitary night. And that's when it finally clicked. You weren't controlling the money. The money had you by the throat. Right then, Lexi called. You looked down at the screen. let out a massive sigh, and stood up. You still drove out to pick her up, but this time, the vibe was completely dead. That night, you still partied, still got high, still laid next to her, but you felt absolutely nothing. Your brain was just focused on the giant anvil hanging over your head, waiting to drop, and you had no clue that the worst part of that night hadn't even happened yet. And it had everything to do with the girl sitting right in front of you. The next day, things downstairs started feeling wrong. It burned when you take a leak, and your hardware was leaking some weird white discharge, but you brushed it off because the shop was slammed, and honestly, you had a much bigger nightmare occupying your brain. That gaping black hole in the ledger that was expanding every single day. Night fell, you sat on your bed, staring blankly at the machine in front of you. The machine that used to pay your salary was the same machine that just robbed you of $4,000. You didn't dare touch it. You knew if you laid hands on it one more time, you were a ghost walking. You laid down and passed out. At 10 to 7 a.m. the next morning, Tyler walked in. You just gave him a dead-eyed look and asked, "Family stuff all sorted out?" He just grunted a yeah. Then, you spilled your guts about the white discharge. You told him about doing the deed with Lexi a few days ago, and listed off all the symptoms. Tyler listened, completely unfazed, and deadpanned. "You got the spicy drip, bro." He said it like it was the most normal thing in the world around here. He drove you to the clinic, and the doc shot you up with an antibiotic, but the needle wasn't what hurt. What hurt was the sudden realization that you had officially become part of the trash heap. You weren't a spectator looking in anymore. You weren't the guy who was just passing through. The filth had finally stuck to your skin. You thought the heartbreak with Lexi was the worst of it. Nope. When you guys got back to the shop, Tyler dropped another bomb on you, the one that completely broke you. Because up until that very second, you actually believed that, at the very least, she was yours. You still thought you only lost your money. The reality was, Lexi was doing side quests with clients left and right. Whoever paid, she played. The time she spent with you was basically just her cooldown period after she finished entertaining other guys. She was still partying, still getting high with Big T's crew like it was nothing. Tyler was even kind enough to show you the receipts, videos of Lexi getting absolutely smashed by clients, multiplayer mode, squad matches. Everything you thought proved she was a good girl. You thought she wasn't like the rest of the lot. Watching those clips, you didn't even rage, you just sat there in dead silence. What you felt wasn't really jealousy, it was the feeling of being completely exposed. You thought you were in love, but the truth was, you were just addicted to the Degan lifestyle she provided. Addicted to the convenience of having a warm body to play co-op with at 3 a.m. Addicted to the rush of blowing cash so you could feel like you were living faster than normal people. And the illusion of being chosen meant accepting that you were just another John in the rotation. Now, you started seeing that nothing in this cesspool existed in a vacuum. The girl, the party mints, the cash, the debt, the machine. It was all rigged together in one giant assembly line. Anyone who steps foot in it thinks they're making their own choices. But really, you're just getting passed down the line from one meat grinder to the next. But the Lexi situation wasn't even the worst of it. That was just a bad romance. The real nightmare was the mountain of cash you incinerated on your little downward spiral. It had grown so massive there was no hiding it anymore. $12,000. That was the $8,000 you embezzled, plus the $4,000 you personally blasted into the machine in a single night. A number big enough to get a man unalived. And right then, a much darker, much more terrifying realization crept into your brain. Maybe from the very beginning, they didn't put you on the machines because they trusted you. Maybe it was because they knew a young, dumb, simp-brained kid who liked holding cash would, sooner or later, dip his hand in the till, and then shove his own head into the machine trying to win it back. That machine didn't just drain the players, it sat there patiently, waiting for the perfect moment to devour the guy guarding it. Lexi was the bait, the commission was the bait. The rush of holding those stacks of cash was the bait. The night Tyler conveniently left town didn't look like a coincidence anymore either. You still wanted to believe Tyler, but you couldn't shake the feeling that every single move had been orchestrated. Your personality, your cravings, your absolute stupidity, the system played you like a fiddle before you even knew you were sitting at the table. You thought you were the house, guarding the machine, but the truth was, you were its juiciest mark all along. And this time, a lie wasn't going to save your skin. The next morning, right on schedule, Big T walked in to run the numbers. And the worst-case scenario, finally, came knocking. Only this time, it wasn't just going to cost you your money, it was going to cost you your respawn token.